For those of you that have been following the channel for a little while, we did a video a bit back about Ocarina of Time ONLINE.
Or
Karina, as I used to call it, and pisses so many of you guys off, which is whatever. And actually got a lot of attention, ton of views, but there's been a lot of progress since then. So I've played a new version of the alpha, I guess you would call it. There's still some things that need to be worked on, but it's definitely a big step from where it used to be. And I'm going to go ahead, just as we're talking, and go ahead and play some video. And as you can see here, we actually have 4 players, and they're all child Link, which was not something that was possible before. It was just adult Link. You guys can just kind of watch this in the background as we're talking. But we have MelonSpeedruns and DenOfLions. I'm going to go ahead and get on a call with them in just a moment. And we've got a ton of questions for them. And like I said, I'm just going to have this in the background so you guys can kind of watch and take a peek and all that good stuff. By the way, I had printed off some notes for us.
All right,
so I'm gonna go ahead and get these guys on the chat here. So gentlemen, I just mentioned that we had played the new version of this. I know that it's changing all the time, but first things first, I'd like to have each one of you introduce yourselves and also sort of say what your role in the project is.
Okay. Well, I'm MelonSpeedruns, so basically I'm the one that started the project. I used to work on Super Mario 64 Online. But after I was done with it, I decided to, start a new online project, which was OT. And from there, my role has been some sort of like project manager and programmer. So I do some research of the game to know what to modify, basically. And that's about it.
And I am DenOfLions. Most people call me Den. That's fine. I am the network programmer for this project that Melon recruited. My goal and job in the project is to get the interactions between links, the movements, the animations, you picking up stuff, you moving stuff, all that kind of stuff to be as close to real time as possible.
Mm. Yeah. So if you guys remember when we did the last video on this, Melon was thinking, probably released like a month or so, right? And then Den came on board and he's like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. I can fix this. I can fix this. So that obviously has greatly increased in terms of the time frame. However, your quality and your sort of synchronization is going up. So if you guys remember, the viewers, that is, last time we played this, at least in the video, there would be things where, the enemies weren't sunk up, or if someone were to take like a pot, you'd see the motion, like the animation, lifting the pot up, but the pot wouldn't be there. Like there were a lot of things where it's like the two of you were in the same space at the same time, which was pretty cool. But at the same time, it was almost like two different phases of reality that were like...
Well, that's very Zelda, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that is a very Zelda, as a matter of fact.
You're actually in the young Link and the old Link timeline at the same time.
Whoa.
Yeah, mind blown. Exactly. So, Melon, why don't you tell us about a couple of the things that... And I know we can see some of this in the video that we're showcasing right now, but tell us a couple of things that are different with the project in terms of progress from the last main video that we had on the H4Games channel.
Okay, well, first of all, as you know, I've recruited Deno, which is, I call him Deno, by the way. I've recruited Deno, and since then he completely rejected my code and started from scratch, but in a good way, because what happened is that we completely changed the network the network side of the project, and because of that, it allows us to do more things with it. So we can sync enemies, pods, and we can also think way more stuff than what I was able to do before alone. And I think Deno might be able to tell you more about this.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I joined the project. Melon recruited me because his netcode had some jankiness to it. The animations didn't look quite right. Like I said, like you were mentioning, you could get inside other Link spaces. There was some weirdness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed me the video that he had made with you guys to show me what he had done. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I like this, but we can do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he said, I basically threw out all of his code and rewrote it because prior to this project, I had worked on a project called OOT Rando Co-op, which is specifically for syncing your progress in a randomizer game.
Okay.
So that you can have multiple players in a rando game and cooperate together and share your items and your quests and all that. So I already had all this really glorious high-speed netcode written that didn't really do a whole lot, didn't have a lot of traffic to it. So I said, okay, I'll take that, I'll hollow it out, we'll put OOT Online in this, and it will be so much faster than what you have. Which we did that, we worked that up real quick, it looked good, but then talking about the time frame of the project, how long it takes to make it. When I first joined, the sort of goals of the project were specifically to get the links in the game, to be able to see the other links, to do PvP, but there was no idea of syncing the enemies and being able to like push blocks together and blow up walls and fight, do all that stuff. That wasn't even on the agenda at that point.
Okay.
But when I joined, I said, okay, but if you're gonna do this, why not do this too? Even though, yes, it is complicated and difficult, but anything that is worth doing is not easy. So
sure.
So is that kind of a long-term goal then, to try and get like more cooperative elements into the project?
Yeah, there's a couple of goals now. I've really pushed for the idea of being able to have as close to perfect parity as we can get when it comes to puzzle elements and things, so that you can cooperate with your friends, and even potentially ROM hacks could be built that, like the dungeon we showed you in this video that we'll see eventually, that you can only complete it if you have 2 or 3 people cooperating together and working as a team to accomplish the goal. So like for instance, with the we call them actors. Any object in the game that Link can interact with is called an actor. I wrote up a quick sort of demo of, okay, this is how we could do it, because no one had ever, if you've ever seen any other attempt at this sort of project, no one's ever done it before. So I quickly hacked up a little demo to show Melon of, yeah, look, we can do this. This is how it could work. It is possible. And once he saw it and got to play with it, he's like, okay, we have to have this.
Yep.
So a couple quick notes here. First off, I just want to read an excellent comment and a really good point that someone had brought out. It's from Hickory Hill, 1977. He says, "I have no friends."
I noticed that. I haven't been noticing the comments that much right now, except that it is mostly of the, the line of thought, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great job. And then I have no friends just sort of comes out of nowhere.
Did my son just push himself into the room? That would be kind of funny.
Your dog.
Oh, Louis wants in? Oh, okay.
Your fur
What's up,
son.
buddy? He's just fluffing around. So anyways, unfortunately, we're a little too high up for him to jump up in our laps and show the world, but we can do the fluff cam real quick, if you don't mind. Fluff cam, fluff cam. Hey, Louis.
What's
up, bud?
There is nothing in here of interest to a dog.
Back to the interview here. Now, you can kind of see this in the video that we're showcasing, but they mentioned sort of that parity and the syncing with the enemies, which obviously is so important when you're playing Zelda, because you want to feel like you're on the quest together. You want to feel like you're attacking together. And you didn't have that at all, really, in the previous version that I had played. But in this particular version, it's so close. So basically, all of the links can attack the enemy, and when it dies for everyone. But if I remember correctly, each link doesn't necessarily see the same motions and attacks. Like each enemy is kind of attacking the link in its own way. And then but its health is kind of paired together. So when it dies for everybody. So there's that feeling like it's perfectly sunk, even though it's not. It's like a notch or two away.
Yep, and the reason that it is like that in the version that we gave you is that it, I'll try not to be too technical here, but the enemies in the game, each enemy is a different object, and they don't the enemies don't necessarily share a ton of data. They share some very basic things like this is my health, this is my position, this is my rotation.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily share like this is what animation I'm doing. This is who I'm attacking kind of thing, because this game is only made to be single player. So in the demo we gave you, we basically set it so that if the enemies die due to their health being synced, if they die, it just despawns them, because that was our quick and dirty, we'll make this work for the demo. But I actually sent you a GIF back when we were first talking about this of some experiments we've done with syncing up enemies with perfect parity. So the enemies will animate exactly the same on both sides. They can switch between different links and attack different people. That is definitely in our development goals. It's just a very difficult task, because you have to do it. What you have to do that sort of process of breaking down the enemies and figuring out how they work and hooking them up one by one for every single thing that can move in the game. So it takes a significant amount of time and quality control to make it look good for all of them.
Real quick, I'm just going to interrupt you, because on the video now that I'm showcasing, we saw the link moving the block. And it was the other two links got on top of the block, so it was moving for everyone. So that was just sort of a perfect example of that syncing. But to your point, and when we were playing together, you mentioned that basically you need to do this for every single enemy. Like every single enemy, like every single room, everything you have to sort of break down and like line up. Is that correct? So it's like the super tedious process is what I understood.
Well, it's basically not necessarily for every room, but for every type of thing. So for instance, the pushable blocks, like that tiny pushable block you saw in the video, that block is the same actor, the same object as say the big blocks in Forest Temple. They are the same, they're just scaled differently and have a different texture. So when I actually originally hooked up the one in Forest Temple as a demo to Melon saying, yeah, we can sync these, and it worked in Deku Tree too, just because they are the same thing. So I have to find one copy of everything in the game and get that to work, and then it works everywhere.
So it's still pretty tedious. And then the video here, you're going to see us about to fight the Goma boss. And by the way, you had mentioned the special dungeon. I'm actually don't have that on this video. I'm actually saving that for the actual video we're going to do, but we'll talk about it briefly. But real quick, so are you objectifying the actors? Do you feel that that's very PC and like appropriate for this?
It's more N64 than PC, but
yeah, there you go.
It's more N64.
Richie took my pun and spun it to another pun. I love it. Okay.
Yes, we are absolutely objectifying them, and the the thing that makes this difficult, talking about tedium, the thing that makes this very difficult and tedious is that there is a lot of documentation out there of like, I like to say that I stand on the shoulders of giants when it comes to OT modding, because there are a lot of people that have done a lot of research over the years, and they have all written down what they found. So there are great resources out there for this kind of thing, but when it comes to how actors animate, how they do certain things, especially with enemies, nobody's really bothered to do any research into those, so a lot of them are completely unknown, so I have to sick Melon on it to figure out how they work.
He's just throwing me into a room and say, do it.
Basically.
Exactly. That's fantastic.
I send him lists of things, and it's like, I don't know how these work. Figure it out and tell me.
But I do it. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, excellent.
Yeah, he
excellent.
does.
Well,
He does it.
Well, that's what happens when you go into uncharted territory. You know what I mean? I'm going to actually, that clip ended. I'm going to go ahead and then pop her back up again. So it'll just have it loop, essentially. So yeah, I mean, when I was playing this with you guys, it was just like the first time when I was playing with Melon alone, it was like, wow, like we're in the same space at the same time. Which of course everyone's played an online game where it's, everything's sunk properly because it's built that way. But it's sort of a different experience playing it with like a game of this age that wasn't meant to do that, and also one of your favorite games too.
Right.
It's like you get to, and that's the thing is that like sometimes people are like, well, why are you doing all this Ocarina stuff? And it's like, well, on the one hand, people seem to really enjoy it, but on the other hand, it's
like Montana Choate here. Okay, so can you do this to Breath of the Wild? Just get like 3 friends and go climbing for a weekend.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say it's just an interesting way to sort of re-experience a game that you love in a totally separate way. So it's like once I got into the dungeon with these guys, it was like, oh my god, like we're playing a dungeon. Of course, I played this damn dungeon a million times. Like it's
Right.
not a big deal, but it's interesting to see how other people play the game, and there's just sort of like odd little, I guess, nuances about it when you're playing together, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you don't necessarily think about when you are playing it by yourself that suddenly become very relevant when you have other people that you can interact with, as we have found, for instance, anywhere in the game that there is, say, in Jabu Jabu, the Rudo button. You don't need Rudo anymore. Someone can just stand on that button for you because you can have more than one person.
Yeah.
Or other places where if you need to do something with more than, if you got to backtrack a lot, now you can split up and you don't have to backtrack, and it changes the dynamic of certain dungeons especially dungeons that are much bigger.
Yeah. So this is a totally random question, and it's slightly off topic, but I was thinking the other day, I'm like, would this even be possible with a game like Majora's Mask? Because you also have to sync to the day that everyone's on.
Would it be possible? I think it would technically be possible. We've actually discussed this internally a little bit because people have asked us, okay, if you get this done and it's perfect, are you going to do Majora's Mask? We get that question all the time. And the answer is it would be cool, but we're not going to commit to it because of one very specific reason that one of our puppet developer, Idika, actually brought up to us, is that Majora's Mask was made for the expansion pack. And Majora's Mask in general does not have a whole lot of free memory to play with. So finding enough free memory to do what we need to do in Majora's Mask would be incredibly, incredibly difficult, if it's even possible at all, compared to Ocarina of Time that does not use the expansion pack. So we have all of that RAM free to do our online stuff.
All that
and
sweet 4
if we do it, we'd have to continue doing it.
Oh, I was just making a joke. All that RAM available, that sweet extra 4 megabytes of video RAM.
Yeah, you can
Even my phone would be sad.
Oh, yeah.
But, when you're talking about a game that was designed for less than that, having a sudden 4 megabytes free of RAM, suddenly you can do a lot. Like, for instance, these the parts of the system with these puppets, say you're talking 4 megabytes, but these puppets for the system to decide where these puppets are and like track them and stuff, we're tracking them in spaces of X amount of bytes. We're not even getting to the megabyte level because things in this game are made at a very small scale when it comes to resources, because it was made for a console that didn't have a lot of resources to play with.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. You may have also just heard my kid running around like, ah! He's like playing with my wife. That's not like,
no, that was me.
Yeah, that was Richie. So we had a question from the chat here. Let's see here. Question for the devs. How can people get into this stuff? I'm not advanced enough for this yet, but I would love to learn all the reverse engineering and networking code. What would be your advice to this individual? This was from username Slowpoke.
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer that one. Basically, the best way to start learning about... Some people say it's hacking, some other people say it's modding, so it's basically the same thing. But if you want to get into modding, you'd want to join the Alien modding server. It's basically a place where everybody can... It's like our community of modders for OT, and there we have tutorials where you can learn how to make maps. And if you want to go deeper, we have a lot of other people that like do this kind of stuff daily, so they can help you figure out stuff.
Yep. And for more technically inclined viewers, should you happen to be here, if you just want to jump in the deep end yourself the way I did when I started learning this stuff, is you go to the Cloud Modding Wiki. You can Google that. It'll take you directly to it. It's a wiki about reverse engineering this game that has years upon years upon years upon years of research documented that people have done about almost anything you could want to know about this game.
I think I've actually been there at some point. I remember like thinking to myself years back, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could, do my own sort of modding? Like, there'd be, so much that I'd be interested in doing. But I kind of got to the point where, between work and home life and being married, and especially now like a kid and all that stuff, but really mostly H4Games takes up most of my free time, right? So it kind of gets to the point where you're chasing too many rabbits. Like I took one look at like the front page or something, and I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, this is so beyond me. And then, like, I'm like, I could learn it, but I would have to leave H4G. I'd have to quit. Like you know what I mean? Yeah. But H4Games is also a second job for me. So it's like, if you have the free time, keep in mind it's going to take a while to learn this stuff, but it's not impossible. Obviously, we're talking to people that are good at it.
Yep, it's definitely jumping in to this stuff is definitely not for the faint of heart, just because you are dealing with some very archaic things, because a lot of what would be considered sort of modern programming thought for how you make things and how you do things doesn't really apply when you're talking about a game that is nearly 20 years old.
Sure. No, that's a perfectly understandable thing.
That's a number I didn't need to hear.
Yeah, you're feeling older and older.
We all feel a little older, having remembered that this game is so old.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were in.
I was thinking 10, 15.
No, we were in. It was 1998. We were in like 7th grade.
No, I forget that like 2000 is almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly right. Y2K scare. So one of the things that we were talking about while we were
actually speaking of the Y2K scare.
Yeah,
like we had a patient in our system that's like a 19 something patient.
Okay.
But at some point in time, like, the system had goofed up, and like now it believes that she was born in 2017.
Oh okay.
But she is not a pediatric patient.
Okay. That's that's hilarious. So question for you guys now, when we were playing this, there were... Oh, no, I thought of 2 questions. Okay, but the one I was going to ask was that you mentioned that mods could potentially be stackable, assuming that they didn't utilize the same free space in the debug ROM, and also weren't incompatible in ways. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Melon. So, in order to build this project, one of the things that I realized immediately was that hard coding it, and by that I mean basically making it a very static, sort of unflexible way, would be a disservice to the community. Because I have a background, before I did any of this sort of OOT modding, I was a Minecraft modder for years. And the big thing there is sort of intercompatibility, mods cooperating with mods, working with a shared platform is big in that community. So I kind of brought that with me. And one of the core things of this project is a mod loader that OOT Online runs inside. This mod loader gives anyone who makes a mod the capability to work with us, so you can make your mods networked. So if you make something special and you want to make it multiplayer compatible, you can do that. If you want to package up your graphics mod, like those H4Games Deku shields in the video.
Yeah, they're little.
You can package those up, and they load up as a mod, and it doesn't modify the ROM. It loads up clean. As long as the mods do not conflict with each other, which as we get deeper, we'll try to eliminate points of conflict. But the main thing is don't use the same. Don't override the same things. Don't. If you use free space, don't use the same areas of free space, but the mod loader actually can manage your free space usage for you if you will let it. You can ask the mod loader itself, hey, I need X amount of free space. Can you give me this? And it will just give you what you need, and the other mods won't touch it, kind of thing.
Okay. So real quick here, we have Psy Hate is in the chat. He says hello.
Oh, Psy.
Hello.
And then,
hello, Sai. Sai is one of our testers, and he is also our ROM hacking guru in terms of one of the things he's working on several ROM hacks, but the one ROM hack he was working on that he showed me he mentioned, oh, it'd be cool if we could get OT Online to work in this ROM hack. And that's what sort of led me down that rabbit hole of, okay, can we play nicely with other mods? Is that a thing we can do? And the answer is yes, we can. And he makes all sorts of testing dungeons for us, like the dungeon you played. He makes us testing rooms so that we can work on mechanics in a nice little vacuum. He breaks everything I code, more or less.
Yep.
Wow,
I code something, I save it, I send it to Sai, he breaks it. That's our process.
So I think there was also in the chat a little bit further up. So Mario Nova is here. I believe that's the same Mario Nova that's making the Mario beta hack.
Yep. Hi, Nova.
Yeah. Says question for MelonSpeedruns. Hi.
Well, I'm gonna answer that question by saying yes.
Oh, well, there you go. So Den was sort of referencing a dungeon, and again, I don't have the footage right here now to show you guys, but technically I do, but I'm not going to show you guys because I'd have to tinker with crap and I don't want to. But basically there was a sort of little mini dungeon that was created and we loaded up into it, all 4 players, or I think it was 3 players at the time. Yeah. And it was designed to have each player take a different path and fight some different enemies and then converge at the end, basically. And it was a very simple dungeon. Aesthetically, it was very pleasing and very cool, but it's simple mechanics. Just sort of like a thing where it's like, okay, here's a little proof of concept for a 3-player Zelda dungeon. Mm-hmm. You finish it in like, a minute and a half.
But the concept still sticks with
you. Exactly. So, what he was referencing was this idea that you could take a modded dungeon, so you have all of these other projects trying to like recreate X, Y, or Z or a dungeon, which is kind of has been the hot thing for a while.
Ocarina of Time, the 4 swords.
Yeah, and basically, so it allows you to sort of do that kind of thing, which is pretty neat.
Very neat.
Yeah, one of that dungeon was basically the proof of concept of saying I can have somebody who makes a ROM hack, they make a new dungeon, and they can distribute it instead of the way that people usually distribute ROM hacks. Either they distribute the ROM, which is bad, or they distribute, a patch or something to patch it into a ROM to then play it. Now neither of those options are required. We have a build system. You can take your modded ROM, feed it in, and it will give you back a file that if you put that file in the mods folder for our mod loader, it will just load it up clean and will not modify your ROM. And with that sort of tech, you can mix and match. So you could say if there were 3 or 4 dungeons you wanted that didn't override the same scene, you could say, okay, I want all 3 of these in my game and play them all. Kind of thing.
So I'm taking a look at the comments here, and there's not like necessarily specific questions for you guys, but I think there's just a lot of like shock and awe. Like a lot of people are saying, hey, I'm like shocked that this is even I'll bring this closer to you, Richie, here.
I could see it.
You could see it okay? Okay. There.
But that is better.
No, good. Well, good. But yeah, like I think people are just genuinely very interested. And there was a question here that we had actually discussed talking about earlier. Someone, let me see if I can give him a shout out here, or did it already go too far away? Okay, yes. So it was an Electric Jazz Cat, hell of a username, says, so do you guys have a rough estimate on how long until it would be done? Nice job and looking forward to it. Smiley face emoticon. Thank you for that question, Electric Jazz Cat. Love that username. Thoughts on that? I know, Melon, you had originally mentioned about a month, but of course things changed, as they always do.
Oh yeah, that month got destroyed.
Yeah, I hope Melon learned from that experience that to never guess release dates because it never works out, and it's partially demoralizing when you don't hit it. So what I'll say about release dates and things being done is that I don't give release dates to any of my projects. I never have. I probably never will. And the reason is very simple. It is because they don't tend to be met, for one, because you can't anticipate problems that you're going to run into in a development cycle like this, and because I don't want to hype people up only to disappoint them when I don't meet that deadline. So
that reminds me of me and my wife hyping her up just to disappoint. Do you know what I'm saying, dog?
I do.
Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Too well.
Too well.
So in terms of what I will say is how done we are. I think that's a better way to.
Okay.
I'll say where we are as a project. Where we are is that we have perfect parity with Adult Link. We have nearly perfect parity with Child Link, barring the Deku Stick. The Deku Stick is a funny beast.
And the bottles.
And the bottles. But other than those two things, we have almost perfect parity with Child Link now. Dungeons, we have 2 dungeons, Deku Tree, as was shown in the video, and Dodongo's Cavern, that are perfectly synchronized, other than the bosses themselves, because those are going to be their own beast.
Divine Beast, would you say?
Potentially. So that is sort of where we are for dungeons and stuff. So obviously we have a lot of dungeons to go, and we have various amounts of overworld stuff done where there is overlap between dungeons. So for instance, picking up rocks and grass and stuff like that, because those are in dungeons too. You see them work in the overworld.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit here, done here and there in the overworld, but I'd say we're probably, in terms of the actual really hard work of this project, I'd say we're maybe, what do you think, Melon's 65, 70% on the really hard stuff?
Yeah, like until 1.0 release. That doesn't count like the other.
Yeah, so I'd say we're about 70% on the really, really hard work. I don't necessarily consider the dungeon syncing itself the hard work, because we have a very smooth system for that makes it very easy to say, okay, Melon did the research on this, let me just plug in some values and it's good.
Okay.
So we here at Hard for Games, we're going to take that 70%, do the math based on how long you've worked on the project so far, and we'll get these guys a release date.
Isn't that the job of Game Explain?
yeah, exactly, right.
So the real thing for a release, and I think you guys will see this hopefully very soon. Once we get the big sort of jump point that we're aiming for, that development will sort of speed up significantly, I believe, is when we make the jump from the debug ROM to 1.0. Because right now we're working exclusively in the debug ROM. Debug ROM is great, but it's not sort of the target platform.
Yeah. So real quick, just to interrupt you, just in case anyone doesn't know, there were different versions of Ocarina of Time. So the debug ROM was the one that was leaked. It was basically the master quest, and it has debug functionality. That's what they're working on now. 1.0 references the first version of Ocarina of Time that was released on cartridge, like the first retail release. There's also 1.1 and 1.2, and there's subtle differences between the two. So that's why if you, for example...
And it totally ruins your beta questing.
Yeah, there's different Game Shark codes for each one, and some of that, so it's basically like a lot of people will come up and be like, hey, I tried that code on my game, and it's like, well, if it's a different version, it needs a totally different code, So what they're trying to do is get this thing working on debug, but the debug has some quirks to it, and then kind of transferred over to
and that's exactly right. And the other thing that's major with the debug ROM, it's a little bit technical, but I'll try to explain it in a nice casual way, is that the debug ROM is not compressed. So imagine zipping a file on your computer. The debug ROM is the one you didn't zip. So it has a significant amount of space at the end of the ROM that has nothing in it. Actually, I think it's filled with like random stuff from Pokemon Stadium.
It is.
For some reason or another. So in our testing, we actually overwrite the Pokemon Stadium stuff and put in our own online code in there. But obviously we can't do it that way in 1.0 because there's no free space. The end of the ROM is just the end of the ROM. There's no... So we're going to have to come up with some very clever injection shenanigans to make it work in 1.0. That's going to be one of the major technical hurdles of this project. But once we clear it, I think the remainder of it will come together significantly faster.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is excellent. I think that we're all very, very excited.
I like this comment. So can 3 people all ride horses together?
Like riding a pony?
Can 3 people fit on one horse?
Yeah, can 3 people fit on one horse, guys, in this? Or is it
I don't remember if I sent you the GIF of it. I may not have, Tony. I have a GIF. So I have a GIF that I will link you if you so desire of I decided one night I decided, it was a couple nights ago. I decided a couple nights ago that I wanted to try to sink Epona. And like everything else be damned, I just had this like urge. Like,
so you're
I want to make the
trying
horse
to kill her in
work
like a bog? You're trying to sink her? Like it's sort of like in the Never-Ending Story in the Swamp of Sorrows when the horse
luckily
goes
she
down.
didn't sink into the floor, but Link might have floated into the air a little bit.
Hashtag so dark. Hashtag spoilers.
So I tried to sink Epona up, which I was successful at. You could watch another player ride the horse, and then I've told the story in Hylian modding where. So the horse was synced. I saw the other Link on the horse. So I walk up to the other Link next to the horse, and I see climb on my A button, even though the other Link's already on the horse. And it's like,
awesome.
Does
I've got to
climb on.
It's like, okay, I've got to press the A button and see what happens right now.
Sure, yeah.
Please tell me the horse mounts the horse.
Yeah, so both Links ended up on the horse, and it was really strange looking, but it did work. And what kind of amazed me as sort of a coincidence of just the way that the netcode actually works.
Yeah.
It tries its best to not do things that would cause you to what we call desync, which means that the two players start seeing different things.
Yeah.
So it tries its best to not let you do that. So what it ended up doing is the person that got on the horse first was able to drive, and the person that got on second could shoot their bow, but they couldn't steer the horse.
That's actually ideal.
That's awesome.
That's ideal. Like, keep it that way. Because imagine horseback... Okay, it is a pain in the ass to do horseback combat in Ocarina of Time. Imagine if you could have a driver and an archer. That's perfect. Keep it. Like, don't change a damn thing. I mean,
spoiler alert, in real life, it's probably a pain in the ass for
the horse.
Fire arrows on a horse. It requires a great amount of skill.
Yeah.
You got to have great respect for the
But
Scythians.
wouldn't that be cool if, okay, so you do this, each Link can have their own opponent if they want, or they could double up. And
we've kind of looked into the Epona thing a little bit. Like I said, I got Epona to where she is rideable with one Epona. The technical issues surrounding Epona are varied, and it mostly comes down to that what we call the instance, basically that Epona existing on the screen, that exact Epona, because there can be multiple of the same thing in a scene. So that Epona instance is extremely large. Epona is one of the largest actors in the game in terms of file size. So if you have a bunch of puppets, or the other Links, as we call them puppets, the other Links, if you have a bunch of puppets and a bunch of Eponas at the same time, the game starts getting very unhappy due to lack of RAM.
Yeah. Well, that's why you reduce the number of Eponas and just put them all on one.
Just 5 Link on the horse.
That's right.
Five Links on the horse. So my long-term goal for Epona, which this isn't entirely on me, this is also on our puppet developer. I'm hoping in the future, probably pretty far in the future, but I'm hoping in the future he can make us a puppet Epona as well, so that we can have very low impact sort of clones of Epona that are very, very tiny in file size, so that I can spawn a bunch of them and then sync them up and make them look good.
Have herds wandering.
Yeah, right? That'd be great. Okay, so last question for you, because I know we have a number of other topics that we got to get to here, but also for the chat, if anyone has any questions, please pop those in there so we can make sure to read them, so we can, while we have the devs here, let's get those questions in. But originally we were talking, I know we mentioned a little bit here too, but we were talking about player v player, and I wanted to see sort of what was the timeline for that, what is the plan for that, is that still going to be a thing, are Battle Royales still going to be something that you guys are hoping to do? What's the thought process now? How has it changed? Has it changed since the last time I spoke with Melon, at least?
For PvP stuff, the plan is still to have PvP. It is not implemented yet due to the sort of part of me doesn't want to spoil the magic, but I will, in that the sort of when you see the other Links interacting with stuff and picking up stuff and sort of interacting with each other, in terms of the way the game is processing that, it's just a very fancy illusion that I built to make it look like they interact with things. They really don't.
Yeah.
But in order to obviously have PvP, we have to have true interaction, which is something that we're very interested in, and it's going to take a lot more research. Our Puppet developer is always working on these sort of things.
IDK, by the way.
IDK, yes. IDK is our Puppet man. He's a genius. Shout-outs to IDK, because none of this would be possible without him. And Simple Flips. The PvP plans are that it will be a separate mode from co-op mode. So you can... I sort of dubbed it Anarchy mode, where no one cooperates.
Which is absolutely what it will be.
Exactly. I sort of dubbed it Anarchy mode, where the idea is that no one will cooperate with each other. You can hurt each other. You can... your items don't share with each other, so if somebody gets, the bigger on sword, look out, because you ain't getting one unless you can take it from him.
Yeah,
kind of thing. We do have a arena map that will be available that our good buddy Hate made for us. An arena map for doing sort of in the future, once we have that working, we're going to have a little demo video of the devs pummeling each other into dust in the battle arena.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun.
So yeah, it is planned. It is going to take a lot more research and work to make it happen, and I'm going to, as always, try to make it as smooth as possible, because that's one of the things that sort of makes or breaks any PvP game, right? Is lag, because nothing feels worse when you play a PvP game than you thinking you got that headshot, but the guy has 200 MS and is actually over there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I have also a thing to say. Basically, I've heard a lot of people saying that like the project is going to get cease and desist, right? Which is a common thing that happens with ROM hack. But the way we're doing this is not actually a ROM hack. What we're doing is that we're actually modifying the emulator, and we're adding scripts to the emulator so it can run out of the ROM the emulator launched. So technically, if Nintendo wanted to shut it down, they had to shut down the emulator instead.
It's basically one of the things I don't like. I don't like messing with ROMs. I don't think that, no offense to anyone that hacks ROMs, obviously, because that's a lot of what this is based upon, but I don't like the idea of distributing any sort of modified ROMs.
Sure.
Because that puts you in a very vulnerable position legally. So this system, the mod loader itself, Ocarina of Time Online, all of it, it doesn't actually really do anything to the ROM. The ROM is perfectly clean. You have to provide your own. So if you download it, you still got to find your own ROMs for it. We don't distribute anything that belongs to Nintendo. One of the genius things about the Puppet itself, the other links, is that they pull their graphics and such from Link. They pull it from Link himself. So there's no copy of any of that in our resources. It's actually pulling anything it needs from the game itself.
That's smart. Yeah,
very sly.
Yeah, I like that. That's really cool. Also gives us some assurance that there won't be issues in the future, which is definitely very good. So guys, before we let you go, we'll start with Melon here, but just wanted to, any last words or thoughts about the project or anything?
That's putting it harshly.
Any last words? Hey, hang on, we have to stop because our boy is back. Our boy is back. People have been asking about him in the comments the whole time. Far Out Ideas is back again. This guy, every stream, he tells us to smoke weed every day. And you know what? It's great because lawn care is important. You got to smoke those weeds out. You got to smoke them out. You got to make sure that you have a good, healthy green lawn.
I like the diversity of emojis too.
There's a little devil.
Yeah. We've got looks like probably like
a grinning and then just a regular smiley face. Yeah.
I think we've got like maybe :D and !carrot maybe.
I don't know how Google operates. He's back in business. Here he is.
So there's one chat question I see that I want to answer just at the end of this because I get asked this question all the time, and I think it's important to answer for anyone who may be interested in speedrunning this in the future, is that yes, are glitches still possible? Yes. Any glitch that will work in the 1.0 version of this game will work in online.
And the project is going to be open source at release.
Yes. Both of those, we get asked both of those questions pretty much every day. So yes, if you know how to do glitches, you can do them on online. They work. Anything from bomb hovers, super slides, wrong warps, RBA, all that stuff works in online. And all of this, everything about this project, all our resources will be open source and on GitHub come release day.
Awesome. So I also like in the comments, everyone's like, all right, now it's an H4G stream that this guy's here. But yeah, no, that's definitely very good to know. I'm sorry, Melon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, but well, you asked me before, just what were my final thoughts on the project.
Yes, sir.
And basically, some people are saying, I've heard some people tell me that like I'm doing it for the money, but we haven't even set up a donation link yet. So how can we be in for the money?
Yeah, I've always said that we're not. I've always said we're not doing this for any sort of gain or attention.
Guys, they're doing it for their egos, not for the money.
Yes, it's obviously to inflate my anything that I make personally, any project I undertake it because I want to play it first and foremost. And this is something that I think any person that was my age when this game came out, this is what they they had siblings. This is what they wanted, right? This is what I want. Like I want to sit down and play this with my friends in randomizer and have a good time. So that's sort of the motivator for this project for me.
Yeah. So, Melon, are you guys planning on doing like a donation button for like supplies or anything like that, or you're holding off for now?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, we're probably not, and the reason is simply I find as a dev that money sort of corrupts. And that should be obvious in pretty much any aspect of life.
I find as American that money corrupts.
It's sort of, but so money corrupts, and I want this project to remain nice and clean, no disputes, nothing, none of that silly, like, oh, donate to my Patreon and I'll give you alpha access kind of thing. No, we don't do that.
Yeah,
we don't do that
here. The
here.
best way of sharing the project, the best way of helping the project and supporting it is not by doing donations. It's by, I guess, sharing it and like playing it, basically.
Yeah. And just being hype about it, basically. But keep the hype train to a reasonable degree. Don't go off the rails.
Don't lose your mind, guys.
Send them an email every day
don't get
asking
too fast
for the
and
release
derail
date
before it comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, calm down.
So if you are, if those in the comments, if you're interested in this project, we have a development log that we post every Monday talking about what we've done, what we're going to do next week, sort of a nice wrap up for the week, like what have the developers been doing. So you can always check that out. It is on Hyrule Modding. Tony, look for that.
Yeah, I actually put a link to that in the description of the video. So
so it's down below the video. If you want to talk to other people about this project, or you want to talk to the devs directly, you can always go to Hyrule Modding. From that link at the very top, there's a link to the Discord. There is a channel specifically to talk about OOT Online. The devs are in there. If you have questions, we will try to answer them, but we are not superhuman. We're not always available, but we try.
Yeah. They're not at your beck and call, but if they will do their best.
We do enjoy fan questions. We try to answer them, and we try to incorporate feedback as we do stuff. Like I ask the Hylian modding guys all the time. Okay, look, I'm thinking about this. This is how it would work. Here's how it looks in a GIF. What do you think?
Yeah.
Does this look good to you? Do you think that this works? Does it feel close enough to the base game that it's worth pursuing? And I kind of incorporate their feedback into the development process.
Yeah. So real quick here, there's the the link to that. So I'm getting a little phlegmy. Sorry about that. I had a cold like 3 weeks ago, and just that residual is still there. I'm not contagious, don't worry. But I was going to say there's a link to that. There's also a link to Melon's YouTube page, which has all sorts of stuff. He actually has done trailers for it and such that you can check out if you're just itching for some more content. And also put a link up to Den's Twitch channel as well. So there's a lot of good resources for you guys.
My Twitch channel is mostly full of Dungeons and Dragons and memes, but occasionally, once we get closer to release, we will start having a lot of OT Online content showing, stuff we've made, maybe some dev work, all that sorts of things. Also, shout outs to Solar's Wrath, who's in chat. He hangs out with us all the time in Hylian Modding. What's up, bro?
Yes.
Hylian Modding is a little memey, so have fun there. Yeah, that's true.
Excellent. So any last thoughts, guys, before we let you go?
Last thoughts. Just sort of stay on the lookout for us, because we're not done yet. We're not gonna drop off the face of the earth and abandon the project as has befallen so many of similar attempts in the past.
That's just what happens. Melon, since you're the original creator of the project, I'll give you the final word. Any last thing you'd like to say to the audience today?
Just be hype, but
Be hype.
don't do it too much. That's
Stay, like I said, stay on the rails. Don't
do multi-track drifting.
Yeah.
Don't meme too hard, guys.
Yeah, don't meme too hard. Yeah, Melon. For those of you guys that don't know, he's been helping out H4Games for the longest damn time. He's actually also chatting with our patrons on our Patreon Discord. But so if you're a Patreon, you can also talk to him there as well.
Hype in
moderation.
Yeah. But he originally helped us with the Wind Waker beta quest video we did. Like, he's been absolutely.
And I found even more stuff after the video, by the way.
What's that?
I found even more beta stuff after the video.
Oh my god, there's so much beta stuff with Wind Waker. Like, it's because they have so much more space, on the disc compared to like a cart. It's just. You could just pages and pages and just so crazy.
There's a literal turd on this data address. Just leave it in there. We got the space.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they didn't even care anymore. They're like, oh my god, discs. We haven't worked with these since the Famicom disk system. They're just like lost their minds.
Deku sprouts are not smokable.
Well, you don't know that for sure. That's,
Now, according to the dank percent speed run, that's Deku sticks that are smokable, by the way.
All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and let you go here in a second, but I just wanted to thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, it's very cool stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Super ambitious and very neat project, and I love the fact that I was able to play it twice already.
Wow.
Just like so cool. Definitely tickles me.
Maybe they were lying about that payment stuff.
Yeah.
We totally were.
Oh yeah, wink, totally. Just keep in contact, Tony. You'll see. I think you'll see more exciting things from us here in a couple of months as we continue rapidly progressing this project into something that hopefully resembles what people wish for. But
perfect.
And
it's a hard standard to hit, so we're trying.
It's a hard standard.
Oh, H4Games standard. I like it. Very good. All right, guys, we will let you go for now, and thank you so much again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and click leave call here on Discord, but again, we really appreciate it. So obviously, I'll be talking to you guys soon on Discord itself.
Okay. All right, have a good day, Tony.
Have a good night.